Laughter won the moment Lauren Ashford fired her husband's pregnant mistress in front of 500 guests. Her husband slapped her on a stage full of cameras. Lauren did not fall. She touched the corner of her mouth, looked at the blood on her fingertip, and smiled into the microphone. "Thank you, Miles," she said. "You just gave the board its final reason." The ballroom went silent. Miles Ashford stood 3 feet away from her, one hand still lifted, his face drained of color as if he had struck a match and discovered the whole building was soaked in gasoline. The plaza ballroom glittered around them with chandeliers, white roses, champagne towers, and the expensive stillness of people who had just watched a billionaire CEO make the worst mistake of his life. Lauren stood beneath the stage lights in a black velvet gown, dark blonde hair swept back, posture straight despite the red mark blooming across her cheek. In her left hand, she held a small silver flash drive. In her right, a microphone. Below her sat the board of Ashford Nova, the software company Miles liked to call his empire. Investors from London and Zurich. Journalists from every financial paper that mattered. 400 employees in formal wear. And in the front row, frozen in a champagne satin dress, sat Ivy Lane, Miles's 26-year-old executive assistant, the woman he had moved into luxury hotels, onto hidden payroll, and apparently into the center of his future. Ivy had one hand over her stomach. For 3 months, she had used that pregnancy like a security badge. Lauren had used those same 3 months to build a case. The charity gala was supposed to celebrate Ashford Nova's upcoming IPO. Miles had spent the week rehearsing a speech about integrity, family, and the future of ethical artificial intelligence. Lauren had watched him practice in the mirror of their Upper East Side townhouse, adjusting his tie while his phone lit up with Ivy's messages behind him. He believed Lauren had forgiven him. That was his first mistake. He believed she was only a wife. That was his second. The master of ceremonies had introduced her with polished cheer 10 minutes earlier. "Please welcome Mrs. Lauren Ashford, wife of our CEO, to draw tonight's grand prize." Wife of. Lauren had walked onto the stage with a smile calm enough to be mistaken for grace. Miles raised his glass from the front row. Ivy leaned toward him and whispered something that made him laugh. Lauren had looked directly at the control booth. Her assistant, Naomi Vale, locked the room's audiovisual system with a coded key. The ballroom screen lit up. The first slide showed hotel security footage. Miles and Ivy entering Suite 1108 at the Langford Hotel. His arm around her waist. Her head tipped against his shoulder. Timestamp, October 14th. Lauren and Miles's 17th wedding anniversary. The second slide showed bank transfers from a discretionary executive account to Ivy Lane under the memo Special Project Support. Total, $186,000. The third slide showed an ultrasound image Ivy had sent Miles. Text beneath it. "Once he is born, she will have to disappear." The fourth slide showed Miles's reply. "The old queen does not know the castle is already mine." A low sound moved through the ballroom. Not a gasp. Something uglier. Recognition. Miles had shot from his chair. "Turn it off," he shouted. No one did. Lauren advanced to slide 5. Ivy covered her face, but not before the photographers caught her. Lauren looked at the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we raffle off a trip to Paris for a children's hospital, I want to clarify why Ashford Nova's charitable account paid for a Paris hotel suite last December, when no children's hospital staff were in Paris." Another slide. The invoice. Another. Miles and Ivy in the hotel lobby. Another. Expense approval signed by Miles. Lauren's voice stayed level. "Ivy Lane, effective immediately. You are terminated from all positions connected to Ashford Nova for fraudulent reimbursement, undisclosed personal relationship with the chief executive, and misuse of company-linked funds." Ivy made a small broken sound. Miles rushed the stage. Lauren turned toward him with the microphone still in hand. "Do not touch me." He grabbed her wrist. The sound crew caught his voice through the microphone. "Are you insane? The IPO is in 48 hours. "I know," Lauren said. "That is why I chose tonight." His face twisted. Then he slapped her. It echoed through the speakers. Someone screamed. Miles froze, suddenly aware of the cameras, the phones, the investors, the journalists, the 500 witnesses. Lauren turned her head back slowly. She could taste blood. For a moment, the room expected tears. It expected collapse. It expected the old script: shocked wife, regretful husband, private marital issue, public relations team, silence by morning. Lauren lifted the microphone. "Security," she said. Please remove Mr. Ashford from the stage before he damages the company further. Miles stared at her. This is my company. Lauren's smile was small and cold. No, it was your title. She took a folder from Naomi, who had stepped onto the stage with the precision of a woman who had rehearsed every second. As of 15 minutes ago, the emergency voting proxy agreement was activated. Misconduct clause, and the board's protective proxy give me controlling authority pending investigation. Miles's mouth opened. No words came out. Lauren held up the flash drive. And this contains the evidence that explains why you are no longer fit to hold any position at Ashford Nova. In the front row, Ivy began crying. Lauren looked down at her. Mississippi Lane, you may keep the chair for another 30 seconds. After that, I suggest you stand up before security helps you. That was when the applause began. Not from everyone. Not at first. But from the back of the employee tables, one woman stood. Then another. Then Natalie Crane, the company's CFO, rose from the board table and clapped once hard. The sound spread. Miles was still on stage, cheek flushed with rage, while the room he thought he owned reorganized. Her to Lauren Ashford had not always been a wife on a program card. Before Miles became a magazine cover, she was Lauren Hale, top of her class at Columbia Law, a mergers and acquisitions attorney whose smallest deal had been worth more than most men at the gala would ever manage. She had negotiated hostile takeovers with hedge funds that smiled like sharks. She had dismantled poison pills. She had found hidden debt inside acquisition targets because a comma sat in the wrong place on an appendix. Miles met her when he was a brilliant young engineer with no capital and more ambition than discipline. He was charming then. Hungry, yes. Arrogant sometimes. But he listened when she spoke. He asked questions. He read the books she recommended. He said her mind made him braver. Lauren believed him. When Ashford Nova nearly failed in year 2, Lauren mortgaged the Tribeca loft her father had left her and wired the funds through a founder loan. When Miles needed a general counsel but could not pay market rates, she left a partner-track position and built the company's legal structure herself. When their children were born, Oliver first and then Sophie, she stepped back from public work because Miles said the company needed one stable parent at home. Just for a few years, he promised. A few years became 12. Her name became smaller on invitations. Mrs. Miles Ashford, wife of the founder, mother of 2. Decorative proof that the man with the impossible schedule still had a wholesome home. Lauren did not resent motherhood. She resented being erased and asked to call it love. The first sign of Ivy came through politeness. Ivy followed Lauren on social media. She sent a message saying she admired women who balanced family, elegance, and power. She asked for advice about navigating male-dominated corporate rooms. She called Lauren inspiring. Lauren read the message twice. Then she looked at Ivy's profile. Young, blonde, glossy, ambitious in a way that had not yet learned camouflage. Lauren did not respond immediately. She waited. Miles began mentioning Ivy more often. Ivy is efficient. Ivy understands pace. Ivy anticipated the Berlin deck before I asked. Lauren heard the rhythm beneath the words. Men praised competence differently when they wanted permission to desire it. Then came the ultrasound. Lauren found it in Miles's home office, tucked inside a contract folder he had asked her not to touch because the IPO quiet period was sensitive. Ivy Lane. 6 weeks. Private clinic. Lauren stood alone in the office with the paper in her hand. Her first feeling was not anger. It was absurdity. 17 years of marriage, 2 children, one company built on her money and labor, and he had hidden the evidence in a folder marked confidential, as if confidentiality had ever stopped Lauren Hale from reading a bad contract. That night, Miles cried. He knelt beside the bed, held her hand, and called it weakness. He said Ivy had pursued him. He said he felt old. He said the pregnancy had shocked him too. He swore the affair was over. Lauren looked at him and made a decision. She would not forgive him. She would let him think she had. The next morning, she hired Naomi Vale full-time. Naomi had been her assistant during the law firm years, a woman with perfect memory, quiet shoes, and a deep dislike of arrogant men. They began with bank records, then travel, then company expenses, then board minutes. Within 3 weeks, Lauren knew the affair was only the decorative top layer. Miles had used executive accounts to pay Ivy. He had billed hotel rooms as investor hospitality. He had routed gifts through marketing vendors. He had inflated revenue ahead of the IPO. He had paid a zoning consultant through a side entity tied to a public contract. And there was one file Naomi found in an archived board packet that made Lauren sit down. Aron Valley, 25, junior security engineer. Dead 3 years earlier in a highway crash after raising questions about phantom revenue. Lauren remembered Aaron. Quiet, brilliant, painfully earnest. He had once fixed Sophie's tablet at a company picnic and refused the $50 Lauren offered him. The official report said break failure. The internal email chain said Aaron had requested a meeting with Miles and the CFO about accounting irregularities 1 week before he died. Lauren did not sleep that night. The plan became larger. Not revenge. Containment. Miles was not just unfaithful. He was dangerous. Lawrence. She used her original founder loan documents. She used board information covenants she had drafted years earlier when Miles thought legal paperwork was boring. She hired licensed investigators. She retained a forensic accounting firm. She asked a retired federal judge, Theodore Marsh, a friend of her father's, to introduce her to the right prosecutors once the evidence crossed from marital betrayal into criminal exposure. She did not wiretap bedrooms. She did not need to. Men like Miles left trails because they believed loyalty meant no one would follow them. 3 days before the gala, Lauren met with Natalie Crane, Ashford Nova's CFO. Natalie read the first packet in silence. Then the second. Then the third. When she reached the hotel receipts for Ivy, her face hardened. I knew something was wrong with the discretionary accounts, Natalie said. Every time I questioned him, he told me the IPO required trust. Trust is not a control environment. Natalie looked up. For the first time that day, she almost smiled. I can get you the board votes if you can survive the room. Lauren closed the folder. I survived 17 years. It fractured into controlled chaos. Naomi moved like a general. Security preserved stage footage. The audiovisual team exported the full recording. A doctor from the charity board examined Lauren's cheek and documented the injury. Natalie took 3 board members into a private room and showed them the proxy documents. Lauren went outside for air. December wind cut across Fifth Avenue. She stood under the plaza awning in her velvet gown and winter coat, the left side of her face pulsing. Her phone rang. Oliver. Her 15-year-old son rarely called twice. He called once, sent a dry text, and assumed intelligence would fill the gap. She answered. Mom. His voice was too controlled. I'm here. Dad called. He said you humiliated him in public and had some kind of breakdown. Lauren closed her eyes. Your father slapped me on stage in front of 500 people. Silence. Is Sophie with you? She's upstairs at Grandpa's. She heard him yelling on speaker before I grabbed the phone. Lauren's hand tightened around the device. Do not open the door for him. If he comes there, your grandfather calls the police. Are you coming home? Home. The word hurt more than her cheek. Not tonight. Mom. I need you to listen carefully. You and Sophie are safe. Your grandfather has security downstairs. I will see you in the morning. Oliver's voice changed. Small suddenly. Are you safe? Lauren looked through the hotel glass at the ballroom where her husband had just become a headline. Yes, she said. For the first time in a long time, I think I am. At 10 the next morning, Lauren walked into the Ashford Nova boardroom. No velvet gown now. White suit. Low heels. Hair pinned back. A visible bruise on her cheek because she refused to powder over evidence. At the long glass table sat Natalie Crane, CFO. Jason Bell, CTO. Marcus Drew, COO. 3 independent directors. Head of HR. Outside counsel. 2 crisis communications advisors who looked as if they wanted to crawl under the table. Miles was not there. His attorney had sent a letter claiming Lauren's actions constituted emotional abuse, corporate sabotage, and a temporary mental health crisis. Lauren placed the medical report on the table first. This is from last night. Then the police report. This is already filed. Then the signed misconduct transfer agreement. This was triggered by adultery, misuse of marital asset. This is control. Jason rubbed his forehead. Lauren, no one supports what Miles did. But the IPO is in 2 days. If we remove him now, the market will panic. The market will panic more when the CEO is indicted after ringing the bell. Marcus Drew leaned back. That is a large word. Indicted? Yes. Then look at the large evidence. Naomi distributed binders. Lauren watched the room read. Hotel invoices. Phantom contracts. Inflated subscription revenue. Side payments to consultants. Shell companies. A file on Aaron Vale. The mechanic's later statement that the brake report looked altered. A former employee's email saying Aaron had planned to report accounting fraud. Marcus turned pale first. Jason second. Natalie did not turn pale. She turned furious. You knew some of this, Lauren said to Marcus. His eyes snapped up. Excuse me? You approved the Berlin hospitality invoices. You approved Ivy Lane's consulting allowance before she was officially onboarded. You helped Miles keep Natalie out of the discretionary account. I was following CEO instruction. That will be your defense then. The room chilled. Lauren stood at the head of the table. Here is what will happen. Miles Ashford is suspended immediately from all positions. Ivy Lane remains terminated and is referred to counsel for recovery of improper payments. An independent investigation begins today. We self-report the accounting irregularities before the SEC discovers them through journalists. The IPO is delayed, not canceled. I step in as interim executive chair. Jason looked up. And if we refuse? Lauren nodded toward the binders. Then I send everything to prosecutors before lunch and let them learn your names from subpoenas. No one spoke. Natalie broke the silence. I vote yes. One independent director followed. Then another. Jason closed his binder. Yes. Marcus stared at the table. Lauren looked at him. Mr. Drew? His jaw worked. Yes. Good. Lauren sat in Miles's old chair for the first time at 11:18 a.m. The skyline looked different from there. Not arrived at headquarters that afternoon wearing sunglasses, maternity leggings, and the expression of a woman who had discovered beauty did not work on locked doors. Security stopped her in the lobby. She demanded Lauren. Lauren agreed to see her. Not out of mercy. Out of strategy. Ivy entered the executive office slowly, one hand resting on the curve of her stomach. Without makeup, she looked younger. Not innocent, but young enough that Lauren felt the first unwelcome flicker of exhaustion. Hatred was easier when the other woman remained an image. Images did not tremble. Mrs. Ashford, Ivy said. Ms. Lane. Ivy's mouth tightened. I need my final pay. Your improper payments are under review. The baby is innocent. The baby did not submit fake invoices. Ivy's eyes filled. You don't know what he told me. Lauren leaned back. Tell me. Ivy swallowed. He said the marriage was dead. He said you were only staying for use the kids to control him. And you believed him? I wanted to. That was the first honest thing Ivy had said. Lauren opened a folder. You received $186,000 base paled. Miles said it was a bonus. For what job? I worked constantly. And slept with the CEO. Ivy flinched. Lauren did not soften. There are two other men. Ivy went still. What? A real estate executive named Simon Hale. A personal trainer named Cole Reed. Both transferred money to you during the same period Miles did. I am not asking as a wife. I am asking as the controlling officer of a company recovering misappropriated funds. Were any of those transfers tied to fake emergencies? Ivy's lips trembled. I was desperate. That is not an answer. Tears slid down Ivy's face. Yes. Lauren looked at her for a long moment. Do you know whose child it is? Ivy covered her stomach with both hands. I repeated the test. It is Miles's. Lauren felt the room tilt only slightly. Not because she wanted Miles. Because betrayal kept finding new rooms. Ivy reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. I have messages. Transfers. Voice notes. Miles talking about the fake revenue. Miles saying Aaron Vale needed to be scared before he ruined everything. Lauren did not touch the drive yet. Why give this to me? Because Miles called me last night. He said if I talk, he will make sure I lose the baby and go to prison. He said no one would believe the mistress. Lauren's fingers curled against the desk. There it was. The familiar method. Threaten what a person loves and call it control. I cannot make you innocent, Lauren said. I know. I can get you counsel. If you cooperate fully, I can support probation on financial charges, employment later under supervision, and medical care during the pregnancy. But you will return every improper dollar you can. You will testify honestly. You will never contact my children. You will never publicly frame yourself as a victim of me. Ivy nodded quickly. I will. And one more thing. Ivy looked up. You do not get to use motherhood as a shield while refusing accountability. The baby is innocent. You are not. If you want to become someone worthy of raising him, start with the truth. Ivy began crying harder, but this time it did not look performed. Lauren let her cry for exactly 30 seconds. Then she pressed the intercom. Naomi, Please call Ms. Lane's attorney and schedule a proffer session. When Ivy left, Natalie entered. Was that wise? Lauren looked at the flash drive on her desk. No. Then why? Because Miles is more afraid of her than of us. Natalie understood immediately. Then she has something. Yes. Do you trust her? Lauren gave a tired smile. Trust is for children and first. Chapter 5 Ivy's flash drive changed the investigation from corporate misconduct to criminal conspiracy. There were voice notes Miles had sent while drunk enough to be careless. Screenshots of instructions. Photographs of expense cards. Messages about Aaron Vale, the junior engineer who had died after finding revenue that did not exist. One message from Miles made Lauren read it 3 times. Aaron keeps pushing. Marcus says we can make the problem look accidental if needed. Marcus Drew, COO, the man who had voted yes in the boardroom with sweat under his collar. Lauren sent the evidence to outside counsel, then to Judge Marsh, who connected her to a federal prosecutor already reviewing the IPO. By afternoon, Aaron Vale's parents sat in Lauren's old law firm conference room. His mother, Ellen, was 70 and small, with white hair pinned carefully at the back of her head. His father, Paul, used a cane and held a folder so tightly the corners bent. Lauren had dreaded this meeting more than the gala. It is easier to face powerful men than parents whose child was buried under a lie. Mrs. Ashford, Ellen said, were you part of the company when Aaron died? Lauren did not hide behind legal precision. Yes. Did you know? No. But I should have asked more questions. Paul looked at her for a long moment. Our son called us the week before the crash. He said he found something bad. He said people at the company were not what they seemed. Ellen opened the folder. Inside was Aaron's damaged phone. The police said the data was unrecoverable. We kept it anyway. Lauren took it with both hands. Thank you. Do not thank us, Paul said. Find out who killed our boy. The forensic team recovered partial audio within 48 hours. Aaron's voice was young, nervous, but steady. Mr. Ashford, these numbers are false. I have to notify the audit committee. Then Miles. You are a junior engineer. You do not understand executive finance. Then Aaron. I understand fraud. Then Marcus Drew's voice in the background. He is not going to let this go. The recording ended there. It was not enough alone. But it was enough to pull the thread. Marcus was brought in for questioning after prosecutors found payments from a shell vendor to the mechanic who had inspected Aaron's car. He tried to blame Miles. Then investigators showed him Ivy's messages, Aaron's audio, and bank transfers bearing his approval key. Marcus broke before midnight. He admitted to concealing payments. He claimed Miles ordered everything. He claimed he never knew anyone would die. Cowards love passive sentences. Miles disappeared that night. Not dramatically. No private plane. No cinematic escape. He drove north in a rented car under a false name with $200,000 in cash and a passport he should have known had already been flagged. He was arrested near the Canadian border at dawn. Lauren did not go to watch. She learned from the prosecutor by phone while making breakfast for Oliver and Sophie. Sophie was 12 and had begun reading every article about the scandal, though Lauren had asked her not to. Is Dad going to jail? Sophie asked from the kitchen island. Lauren turned off the stove. Oliver went still beside her. There was no gentle way to say some truths. Only an honest one. Yes, Lauren said. I think he is. Sophie stared at her cereal. Did he kill that man? Lauren's throat tightened. The court has to decide that, but there is evidence he was involved. Sophie nodded too calmly. I hate him. Lauren crossed the kitchen and sat beside her daughter. You are allowed to be angry. I hate him, Sophie repeated, voice breaking. I know. Do you? Lauren pulled her close. Yes. Sophie cried into her shoulder. Oliver looked out the window, jaw clenched, trying to become a man too quickly because his father had failed at being one. Lauren reached for his hand too. You do not have to protect me from your sadness, she said. He did not look at her, but his fingers closed around hers. That morning, Lauren understood something revenge stories often forget. Winter 6, the press conference happened 2 days after Miles's arrest. Lauren stood at the podium in Ashford Nova's headquarters wearing a white suit. She left the bruise on her cheek visible. Not dramatic. Not enhanced. Just not hidden. Behind her stood Natalie, Naomi, the independent board chair, and 2 employee representatives. The logo behind them no longer read Ashford Nova. It read Aurora Nova. The old name was too stained to carry into the next market. First, Lauren said, I apologize to employees, investors, clients, and the family of Aaron Vale. Senior leadership failed to protect this company from corruption. I was part of that leadership structure, and I accept responsibility for helping rebuild what was damaged. Flashbulbs popped. Second, Miles Ashford has been permanently removed from every role. The company is cooperating fully with federal authorities. There will be no private settlements, no hidden documents, no protection for anyone who participated in misconduct. A journalist raised his hand. Mrs. Ashford, critics say you used your husband's affair and a domestic violence incident to stage a corporate coup. Lauren looked at him. A coup removes lawful authority. Assaulted me in public, and evidence showed financial misconduct. If that troubles anyone more than the misconduct itself, they should examine why. Another journalist stood. Did personal revenge motivate you? Of course, Lauren said. The room stirred. She continued. I am not a machine. My husband betrayed me, humiliated me, misused our marital assets, endangered our company, and allegedly helped cover up a young man's death. I felt rage. But rage did not create the bank records. Rage did not forge invoices. Rage did not send threatening messages. Rage did not strike me on stage. Evidence did not become false because I was angry when I found it. The journalist sat down. Natalie looked like she might applaud. Lauren moved to the next page. Third, the IPO will be delayed while we complete restatement and compliance review. We would rather ring the bell late with clean books than early with poison numbers. That line became the headline by evening. Clean books before bell. Investors did not flee. Some did. The shallow ones. But the serious funds waited. Lauren spent the next 6 months doing work far less cinematic than the gala and far more important. She rebuilt controls, replaced executives, restated revenue, sold non-core assets, met regulators until her throat hurt, testified in closed sessions, reviewed vendor files until midnight, took the children to therapy twice a week, answered Sophie's questions, let Oliver be angry without letting him become cruel. Ivy cooperated. She returned what money she could. She testified in front of prosecutors. She enrolled in online classes through a state university. Lauren placed her in a low-level administrative role in a remote division after legal clearance, under a manager who did not tolerate drama. Some people called that mercy. Lauren called it supervision with a chance attached. Ivy's son was born in late spring. She named him Noah. Not Ashford. Not after any man. Just Noah Lane. Lauren visited the hospital once. Ivy cried when she saw her. I don't deserve you being here. I am not here for what you deserve, Lauren said, looking at the baby. I am here because children should not inherit the worst thing their parents ever did. Ivy wiped her face. I want to do better. Then do it in verbs. What? Study. Work. Save. Tell the truth. Show up. Those are verbs. They matter more than apologies. Ivy looked down at her son. Okay. Lauren left before the moment became sentimental. But in the car, she cried for exactly 4 minutes. The hell began in winter. By then he looked smaller. Prison weight sat strangely on him. His hair had been cut short. His designer posture had collapsed into something defensive and tired. But when Lauren entered the courtroom, hatred lit his face like an old habit. The charges included securities fraud, wire fraud, bribery, obstruction, conspiracy, and involvement in the events leading to Aaron Vale's death. The prosecution did not need Lauren to be perfect. That was fortunate. On cross-examination, Miles's defense attorney tried to make her a bitter wife. Mrs. Ashford, is it fair to say your investigation began after you discovered your husband's affair? Yes. So this entire case began as personal revenge. It began with betrayal, Lauren said. It continued because the evidence led to crimes. You befriended Ms. Lane to gather information. She contacted me first. I responded carefully. You delayed confronting your husband for months. Correct. Because you wanted maximum damage. Lauren looked at the jury. Because women who confront powerful men without evidence are often called unstable. I wanted documents. The courtroom went still. The attorney shifted. You are asking this jury to trust a woman who publicly humiliated her husband at a charity gala. No, Lauren said. The prosecution is asking the jury to trust bank records, messages, sworn testimony, forensic accounting, and recovered audio. Whether you like me is irrelevant. At the defense table, Miles stared at her. For the first time, she felt nothing when he looked at her. Not love. Not hatred. Not even triumph. Just distance. The verdict came after 6 days. Guilty on the major counts. The sentence was long enough that Miles would be old if he ever came home. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Are you satisfied? Lauren paused. No. Satisfaction belongs to victories. This was a consequence. Aaron Vale is still gone. My children still lost the father they thought they had. This company still has repairs to make. But justice has moved, and today that is enough. Ellen Vale, Aaron's mother, stood nearby with Paul. Lauren walked to them before she entered her car. Ellen took both her hands. You gave him back his name, Ellen said. Lauren shook her head. He kept his name. Miles tried to bury it. Paul, who had said little throughout the trial, looked at her with wet eyes. Then thank you for digging. Lauren carried that sentence with her longer than Laura Nova rang the opening bell at NASDAQ. Lauren stood on the balcony in a cream suit with Natalie to her right, Naomi behind her, Oliver and Sophie in the front row below. Ivy stood near the employee section holding Noah's hand. No one at the exchange knew the full history of the little boy with bright eyes and a crooked bow tie. That was fine. Children deserved futures, not footnotes. The bell rang. Applause exploded. The stock opened higher than expected. Lauren smiled for the cameras because a CEO learns when smiling is part of the job. But the moment that mattered happened afterward, in a small side room where Sophie hugged her and said, I want to run something someday. Lauren smoothed her daughter's hair. Then learn how money works, how law works, and how people behave when they think no one is checking. Sophie frowned. That sounds exhausting. It is. Is it worth it? Lauren looked through the glass at the trading floor. If you build something that protects people, yes. Aurora Nova changed after the IPO. It became bigger than Miles's corrupted ambition had ever allowed. The company built fraud detection software for banks, accessibility AI for visually impaired users, and compliance systems that eventually became standard across several federal agencies. Lauren founded the Aurora Women's Independent, supported women leaving financially abusive marriages, women rebuilding careers after years at home, women starting companies after being told they were too old, too emotional, too difficult, too late. She did not call it revenge. Revenge is a match. This was infrastructure. Ivy earned her degree. Slowly. Imperfectly. With child care problems, night classes, and more than one tearful call to Naomi about payroll forms. She married 5 years later, not a rich man, but a kind one, a software developer who treated Noah like a child rather than a complication. Lauren attended the ceremony. Not as a mother. Not exactly as a friend. As proof that people can be more than the worst room they once stood in. Years passed. Oliver became a lawyer and joined the pro bono arm of Lauren's foundation. Sophie studied engineering and business, then interned at Aurora Nova in the least glamorous department Lauren could find. Copies? Sophie complained on her first day. Copies, Lauren said. I am the CEO's daughter. Then you can operate the copier with inherited confidence. Sophie rolled her eyes and did the work. Lauren did not visit Miles in prison for a decade. Oliver did once. He returned quiet. He said he is sorry, Oliver told her. Lauren was in her office, overlooking the Hudson. The city moved below, indifferent and alive. What did you say? I told him I forgive him because I refuse to carry him forever. But I also told him forgiveness is not a door back into my life. Lauren's eyes stung. That is wiser than I was at your age. Oliver smiled faintly. I had a better mother. After he left, Lauren stood at the window for a long time. The woman on the gala stage would have wanted Miles to suffer forever. The woman at the window wanted something different. Not mercy for him. Freedom from him. There is a difference. The last internal fight came 9 months before the IPO. It arrived disguised as concern. The independent directors requested a closed session without management. Natalie told Lauren before the email even reached her inbox because loyalty, unlike obedience, still tells the truth when the truth is inconvenient. They are nervous, Natalie said. Lauren looked up from a compliance report. About what? You. Lauren leaned back. The word did not surprise her. Say it plainly. Natalie closed the office door. A few investors think the company needs a softer public face before the IPO. They admire what you did, but the old gala footage keeps resurfacing. The slap, Miles being removed, your testimony. They are worried the market sees you as too associated with scandal. Lauren almost laughed. The scandal was the man who committed crimes. I know, but I am the woman who survived them in public, so I am the stain. Natalie's silence confirmed it. That afternoon, Lauren entered the closed session without waiting for permission. 8 directors sat around the table. 2 looked guilty. 3 looked relieved. 1 looked irritated. The lead investor, Warren Pike, was a venture capitalist with silver hair, soft hands, and the particular confidence of a man who had never been called emotional for raising his voice. "Lauren," he said, "this was meant to be a preliminary governance conversation. About removing me from the public roadshow." Warren's mouth tightened. "About optimizing leadership optics. Use adult words." The room went still. Lauren placed a folder in front of every director. Inside is the investor feedback from the last 6 months. Page 1 shows institutional confidence rose after my congressional testimony. Page 2 shows customer renewals increased after the compliance rebuild. Page 3 shows female-led funds increased their position by 22% after we announced the Independence Fund. Page 4 shows employee retention improved after Miles's executive circle was removed. Warren did not open his folder. "No one disputes your operational success." "Then what do you dispute?" "Market temperament." Lauren looked at him. "Mine or yours?" His face colored slightly. She continued, "You want me to stand beside the bell quietly while a polished man explains the company I rebuilt. You want the benefit of my cleanup without the discomfort of my story. That is not governance. That is laundering." One of the directors shifted in his seat. Warren exhaled. "This is exactly the concern. You personalize strategic feedback." Lauren opened her own folder. "No, Warren. I document it." She clicked the remote. The screen lit with a slide showing a private email chain. Warren Pike to 2 directors. "We need someone less sharp for television. Lauren is brilliant, but the angry wife narrative caps valuation." The room froze. Warren's face went pale. "That was private correspondence. Sent through a board account subject to governance review. You are proving my point. And you are proving mine." Lauren walked to the screen. The angry wife narrative did not cap valuation. It created trust because the market watched a woman choose disclosure when concealment would have been easier. It told employees that violence and fraud would not be dressed up as leadership. It told regulators that we would not hide behind a founder cult. And it told every client who has ever been lied to by a software vendor that this company now understands consequences. Natalie sat at the far end of the table, eyes bright. Lauren turned back to the directors. "If anyone at this table believes I am too sharp to lead the IPO, vote now. I will accept the result. But do not ask me to become softer, so the men who tolerated Miles can feel less embarrassed about who finally cleaned up after him." No one moved. Not even Warren. The vote never happened. 2 weeks later, Warren resigned from the board, citing portfolio conflicts. His replacement was a former SEC enforcement director named Helena Ross, who asked harder questions, read every footnote, and became one of Lauren's fiercest allies. When the roadshow began, Lauren did not soften. She told investors the truth. She said the company had been compromised by founder misconduct and saved by governance. She said no algorithm was innovative enough to excuse a corrupt balance sheet. At the London presentation, one fund manager asked whether she worried her reputation was too tied to a personal scandal. Lauren looked at him across the polished table. "My reputation is tied to what I did after the scandal," she said. "That is the only part one control." The fund doubled its allocation the next morning. By the time Aurora Nova rang the bell, the market no longer saw Lauren as Miles Ashford's angry ex-wife. It saw her as the woman who had turned a contaminated company into a disciplined one. That was not an accident. It was the second firing. Not of a mistress. Not of a husband. Of every room that thought a woman's rage made her less rational than the man. Lauren returned to the Plaza Ballroom. Not for revenge. For the annual gala of the Aurora Independence Fund. The chandeliers were the same. The stage was the same. The place where Miles had struck her was almost exactly where the podium now stood. Lauren arrived early and stood alone in the empty ballroom while staff arranged flowers. Naomi found her there. Heavy room. It used to be. And now? Lauren looked at the stage. Now it is just a room. By evening it was full. Not with investors waiting to be impressed by a corrupt founder, but with lawyers, founders, survivors, engineers, mothers, daughters, and men who had learned that allyship meant more than clapping after damage was done. Lauren stepped onto the stage to introduce the fund's newest grant recipients. No flash drive this time. No blood on her mouth. No husband rushing the stairs. Only a speech she had written herself. 10 years ago, she said, I stood in this room and believed the most powerful thing I could do was expose the truth. I was right, but only partly. Exposure is the first act. Rebuilding is the harder one. The room listened. A woman can survive betrayal and still need rent. She can win a court order and still need child care. She can leave a violent home and still need a job, credit, health care, and someone who believes her before the video goes viral. Ivy sat near the front with Noah, now 10, and her daughter asleep against her shoulder. Natalie sat beside Sophie. Oliver stood near the back with a group of young lawyers from the foundation. Lauren continued. The goal is not to teach every woman to fight alone on a stage. The goal is to build a world where she does not have to. Applause rose. Lauren waited. If life slaps you, yes, stand up. But after that, do not spend the rest of your life swinging at the past. Build something the next woman can stand on. The applause became a standing ovation. Lauren did not think of Miles first. That was how she knew she was free. She thought of Aaron Vale, of Ellen and Paul, of the employees who kept their jobs, of Ivy, who had made terrible choices and then harder, better ones, of Oliver and Sophie, who learned the truth too young and still grew toward light. After the gala, Lauren walked out under the same winter sky that had cut her face 10 years earlier. Naomi handed her a coat. Where to? Lauren looked down Fifth Avenue, bright with traffic and cold air. Home. The word no longer hurt. It no longer meant a townhouse, a marriage, a photograph, or a man who promised forever while hiding invoices. Home was the life she had built after the lie. Home was the company made clean. Home was her children laughing in the kitchen. Home was the work still waiting. Lauren stepped into the car. The city moved around her, restless and shining. The book had not closed. It had become a map. And every morning somewhere, another woman would open a door, gather more stories of quiet strength, hidden truth, and the moment underestimated women take back their lives.